Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Google Pixel 7a and compare it against the Google Pixel 4a and see which specific phone you should go and pick up. Now, personally for me, I loved the Pixel 7a. Actually, I like the Pixel 7a, but I loved the Pixel 4a when it first came out. And these phones are kind of different philosophies. The Pixel 4a came out in 2020. The Pixel 7a came out in, just like 2 weeks ago. And if we look at the price tag of the 4a, I think this one was like $350 or something when it first came out. The Pixel 7a is now about $500, so they definitely crept up in price. You're definitely getting a more premium, more better phone from the Pixel 7a. But I don't know, I kind of miss phones that were like around this price tag. I feel like this was a really good price for this phone, even though it was pretty much completely made out of plastic. I definitely do think the 7a is a better phone, but I don't know. I kind of like what they did with the 4a. If you want to pick up some phones I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside, both phones are a little bit different, as you can tell. The Pixel 4a on the front had a 5.81-inch OLED display, and I definitely do think it's a pretty decent display for what it was at the time. If you remember, it was basically the main takeaway was Google didn't have to do the notch anymore and all this other stuff. And this was I think the first time we saw a hole punch display on one of these phones, which is pretty crazy. So that's something I really did like about it. So you're getting a hole punch display, 1080p, 5.81 inches, definitely not the smallest panel, but definitely not a massive panel either. And it felt really good in the hand. I think they did a decent job with the build of this phone for how cheap it was. And that's definitely a really cool thing going for this device. Now, with the Pixel 7a, like I said, definitely the better display for sure. You're getting a 1080p display still, but you are getting a bigger 6.1-inch OLED panel, which is nice, 1080p. It is a hole punch display, but it's centered. I also think that it looks a little bit, I don't know. Some people like this design. I like it. I think the Pixel, like that rounded corner design, like on the Pixel 5a and the Pixel 5, I think I really like that design. But this one looks really nice as well. It's definitely grown on me. This is also a 90 hertz panel as well. You have to keep that in mind. 90 hertz is really nice, and you are getting that over the Pixel 4a, which was like 60 hertz, but I'm going to be honest, sometimes it didn't even feel like 60 hertz if I'm being real. So that kind of covers it up there. Now for the rest of the body, as I mentioned, this is another pretty big thing to keep in mind here. So with the Pixel 7a, you are getting a little bit of a different type of styling. So you're getting clearly you're getting a phone, or you're getting a SIM card here, everything, but the Pixel 4a is pretty much built out of plastic. The Pixel 7a is built out of aluminum, which feels really nice. So there's completely different layouts here. On the bottom, you're getting USB-C ports, kind of the same type of styling down there. On the top, though, you are getting a headphone jack on the Pixel 4a. The 7a doesn't have that, so keep that in mind. And on the back, very different stylings here as well. So on the 7a, you can see we have a dual camera setup on the top left corner. The Pixel 4a has a single camera setup. You have your fingerprint sensor here, where on the 7a it's built in the display, and you have a complete plastic back on the Pixel 4a, but the 7a also has a plastic back, but they are very different stylings. This one you can tell is plastic. The 7a, I mean, if I'm feeling this, I thought it was glass. I thought the Pixel 6a had glass too. Like, that's just how bad I am at doing my job, but also how good the plastic back is here. Like, it's pretty surprising. So, the Pixel 7a is definitely a different design philosophy. Like, they're not trying to do the same thing between these two phones. I love the A lineup. Google is able to make a decent phone at a decent price tag. But one of the big things to keep in mind, like I mentioned, is that with the Pixel 4a, it is a pretty cheap phone, and it feels pretty cheap. The 7a is a decent priced phone, but it's definitely not a cheap one, but it feels pretty good. Like, it is pretty much what you're getting on this phone. The 4a, I think, felt a little bit more premium than what you're actually paying for. So that kind of covers it up there. Now, one of the sadder aspects, I would say, of the Pixel 4a as of right now is the fact that it's pretty much kind of done getting software support. So I think Android 13 is the last version of software that it's getting. The Pixel 4a 5G is getting Android 14, but this one, on the other hand, is going to be pretty much stuck on Android 13 as far as we can tell. So it's not the end of the world or anything, but it is just one of those small things to keep in mind. The 7a, that would be one reason to go for a 7a, is because you are getting a longer lasting phone from something like the 7a than on the 4a. So that kind of covers it up there as well. Now let's go into a speed comparison between these two phones. The Pixel 4a has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G chipset inside with 6GB of RAM, where the Pixel 7a has that Google Tensor G2 chipset inside of it with 8GB of RAM. So let's go and see which one's the faster phone between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background. Let's get into it. 4a is here, 7a is here. Okay, I don't know why that just happened. Let's go ahead and try this again. Phone calls, 3, 2, 1. Okay, very similar. Google Messages, 3, 2, 1. Okay, hopping out of here. Let's go ahead and get into camera, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. I don't think this one has night mode on it, or it does have night sight. Let's go and get into night sight real quick and see what happens between both. 3, 2, 1. So you can even see right here, I think the Pixel 7a is going to be substantially faster into taking that photo than the Pixel 4a at pretty much the exact same moment. So even that right there was a pretty big difference if you ask me. Now, even scrolling out of the applications was pretty fast on the 7a compared to the 4a. Facebook, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we basically don't have Wi-Fi on that. Snapchat, 3, 2, 1. 7a, I think, was the faster one. Dropbox, 3, 2, 1. I keep forgetting that some of these have themed icons and some of them don't. It's gonna hop out of here. Snake versus blocks, 3, 2, 1. And the 7a was faster there. The 4a a little bit behind. Getting into some gameplay here. Let's see if there's a big difference, which I don't think there's going to be. Actually, they're both performing fairly well, so there's not too many glitches there. Hopping out of that one. But scrolling out of an application, as you guys saw, it is very, very choppy on the Pixel 4a. So stack, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think the 7a was the faster one there too. Hopping out of that one. Let's go and do Quizlet, 3, 2, 1. 7a was the faster one. Let's try Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. Now, again, these games are, not the most intensive games of all time, but again, you are getting a pretty decent performing phone from something like the Pixel 7a. The 4a, I think, was okay when it first came out, but I mean, definitely it's showing its age now. Although in this game, it did actually do pretty well next to it. So at the end of the day, I think the 7a is a much better performing phone than the 4a. I think the 4a is okay, but that's definitely a pretty big difference right there. Now, in terms of the camera setups, like I mentioned, very different types of cameras here for the most part, but still very similar. The 7a has a dual camera setup, wide and ultra-wide camera. The Pixel 4a has a single wide-angle camera. You can do 4K on the back of both of them. You can do 1080p on the front of the 4a, but the 7a you can do 4K at 60 on the back and 4K at 30 on the front. Now, the 4a camera, take it as you will, but this camera really wasn't that great when it first came out. I heard a lot of people say actually it wasn't that bad, but it's definitely a pretty basic camera. You're getting 7x zoom, standard 1x zoom on the outside. You're getting portrait video, you're getting night sight. I mean, this phone is very choppy scrolling through around now, I'll be honest. I don't know why it's so choppy like this, but I will say, I don't know what's going on now. I will say that with this camera, very decent. It's definitely not amazing, but for $350 back then, I guess it's understandable. So you aren't really getting the best, most insane camera of all time, but I guess it's kind of understandable from what you're getting from that standpoint, if that makes sense. Now, the Pixel 7a, on the other hand, I think this camera's pretty good. I think it's a solid camera. It's definitely not the best camera this year, but watch some people say it is. It's you have 0.5x zoom on the outside. You're getting 8x zoom or 7x. You're getting 8x zoom zooming in, which is really nice. You're getting camera, you're getting portrait video, you're getting long exposure, night sight, you're getting camera mode and video mode, and under more modes, you're getting 3 more modes here too. So I definitely do think this is a solid camera, and I definitely do think it's a better camera than the 4a. But is it a great camera? Probably not. I'd rather just go buy a Pixel 7 at that point. Which brings me to my final thoughts. I would just recommend buying a Pixel 7 over the 7a. Like, a used Pixel 7 is probably going to be cheaper than a brand new Pixel 7a. So there isn't really a massive reason to go and buy a phone like this when you can go buy a phone like a Pixel 7 in the used market and save yourself even probably like $100 or something. The 4a, I like this phone a lot. I liked it when it first came out. I probably would not recommend buying this phone anymore, but it is understandable from what Google was trying to do there. And I think this was a really, really smart play from Google to make these very cheap phones, get them in a lot of people's hands and increase the prices. I think that kind of makes some sense, from a business standpoint, but I do kind of miss the $350 phones that Google made. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video.